Richard Jewell wasn't a film that I was eager to see. While I love the work of Clint Eastwood, his American Hero trilogy, which consisted of 2 of his worst films ever, and 1 of his most dull, really halted my excitement for any future film of his. I barely watched The Mule a couple months ago, and was underwhelmed with that as well. I only decided to watch Richard Jewell in a theater after the fantastic trailer release, which was personally made by Clint Eastwood himself. After seeing the movie, I have to say that this is Clint Eastwood's best work in over a decade. The film is of course about the intense media scrutiny that a security guard went through after saving lives by reporting a suspicious unattended backpack. The man was a hero, but let's be honest, Richard Jewell wasn't the brightest man, through no fault of his own of course. In the hands of a lesser director, his character would have been unbearable, and displayed as a clown, kinda like the Informant's portrayal of its subject. Eastwood has always been able to depict his characters that are intellectually or economically challenged in a way that erases all mockery or sense of pity. He never views himself as better than them, or erases all their faults to make them seem like perfect angels. He meets them on their level, and displays them for you as they were, and nothing less or more. Due to Richard's admiration of the government and law enforcement, he does everything the FBI wants him to, which ends up harming his case of innocence. While this would typically be unbearable for the audience to watch, the movie counteracts this by using the lawyer character as a vessel that does and says what the audience wished they could. He tells Richard constantly that he needs to evaluate the situation that he's in. He defends Jewell with the vigor that a captivated audience would have. The acting all around is great, with the standouts being the 3 lead actors. Sam Rockwell is charming as always, and Kathy Bates gives her best performance since Misery. Hauser, who plays Richard, brings a quiet dignity to the aloofness of Jewell. You could tell that Jewell wants to be so much more than what he is, yet you could see that he's not quite wired for greatness. The only performance that's a bit iffy is Olivia Wilde's performance. She acts like a hungry coyote that's desperate to feed on any semblance of a story. She seems actively turned on at the thought of an interesting story, and it's pretty awkward to watch. I get the choice to have her that way as she's one of the villains of the story, but holy shit, she could have toned it down. Her costumes are just as hyperbolic as her personality. Speaking of the costumes, the choice to have the media and the FBI agents dressed vastly different from the good guys was a great choice, as it highlighted the disconnect between the two. There are other small details that Clint uses to subconsciously inform the viewer, like having the camera shake more when a character is around the media, but those are the only 2 worth noting. The movie moves at a steady pace that doesn't overly dramatize the course of events. This leads to a somewhat uneventful and tension-free opening, but once Richard Jewell's name gets dragged through the mud, the movie becomes filled with tension, mostly stemming from Richard's aloofness. Each slip of the tongue digs his grave deeper, and each interaction with the FBI, no matter how mild, becomes stressful. Anytime he was alone with the FBI, I worried that he was going to be humiliated and manipulated. This movie is clearly a takedown of headline journalism, but sometimes it seems like an indictment on the whole profession. Thankfully, it rarely delves into that territory. Although I do think it's a good film, it's hard to recommend due to its pacing and its somewhat overly politically driven message. If you don't mind a film that features both of those things, then check out Richard Jewell.